Punk misses Saudi, AJ Styles misses out on a 4-way, and opponents for a championship at Crown Jewel become partners in WarGames. These are your match card predictions and plentiful spoilers for the Crown Jewel show in Saudi Arabia. We start with the United States Championship, missing from the card ever since LA Knight won it from Logan Paul at SummerSlam. This is a very difficult position for this championship because it's mostly hovering around the Carmelo Hayes-Andrade feud, which has been independent. LA Knight was originally going to be facing off against one of them, but the introduction of AJ Styles set the cat amongst the pigeons. The plan, as I mentioned during spoiler warning, was that AJ would be working with Carmelo Hayes, with Andrade, and eventually in the orbit of LA Knight, who he already has some chemistry with. There's your fatal 4-way at Crown Jewel. Andrade, Carmelo Hayes, LA Knight and AJ Styles. Unfortunately, AJ Styles is injured and cannot compete, meaning that the United States Championship has dropped off the card. Now AJ Styles is already playing up the injury on social media, essentially saying that it might well be a career ender. It isn't, we're not there as of yet, but he was always going to hype up a retirement angle. I've been speaking about this potentially being his last contract and he's very close to the end of it. He wants some assurances, he wants to work TNA, he wants to work wherever he wants to work, and the WWE can't quite offer that at the moment. So we'll start a retirement storyline leading into a brand new contract that kind of still gives AJ Styles whatever he wants. He is far too valuable to not give him what he needs. Unfortunately for LA Knight, it's another pay-per-view missed, another opportunity missing. We have not really seen the opportunities for the United States champion, and in many ways, the belt has faded firmly into the background. The Bloodline looks set to face off again in a match almost exactly the same as the one we had at Bad Blood. Only one body will be switched, that of Cody Rhodes being swapped out for Jimmy Uso. Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso are already in the process of trying to recruit Jey Uso back. What will not be so obvious is the attempts to recruit Sami Zayn back as they build to a WarGames featuring 4 against 4 with a possibility of a Julio, Tola Tonga. All sorts of options that would result in the good guys losing for this one. But before we get to WarGames, we have Crown Jewel. Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso on one side, Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu on the other, as we continue this mission to get people excited for Roman versus Solo and to sort of hype up the possibility of Jacob Fatu versus basically anybody. We know how good this guy is. The WWE really want you to get behind the idea of him versus Roman Reigns for a reason. The good guys won last time. I can't see that happening with this one. Jimmy and Roman need help, and what better way to say we need help than with a 4-on-2 beatdown with no Cody Rhodes involved because he's simply busy elsewhere in the main event. That's what I have here. Roman losing with Jimmy Uso being pinned by Solo Sikoa. It's all about Jey, it's all about Sami, and I do feel while Jey won't help here, Sami Zayn definitely could. You'll be forgiven for forgetting that there's 3 sets of tag team championships in the WWE. Only one set are actually expected to be there, and it's not for anything tag team championship related. Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa are expected to be in Saudi Arabia primarily because of the bloodline off that I've just mentioned. We are not expecting to see Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair, Finn Balor or JD McDonough. In fact, there's only a very small splinter of Judgment Day that will feature at all, with Dominic Mysterio the only one not wrestling. We are still waiting to see tag team championships defended, and it's simply not happening. I expect this particular streak to continue. Nia Jax and Liv Morgan will face off for a championship that means absolutely nothing, and which we will all forget, just like the original Saudi Arabian championship technically held by Braun Strowman. Do you remember that? Because I promise you most of you don't. The match build is already far too busy, with Nia Jax focused more on Bayley and with Liv Morgan focused far more on Rhea Ripley and Raquel Rodriguez, who's just returned to the WWE. We also still have the push happening for Tiffany Stratton sort of quietly in the background, so this is a mess. This is a jumble, and honestly, I can see Rhea Ripley being heavily involved here in a way that gives Nia Jax the win and starts the build towards WarGames. Raquel Rodriguez versus Rhea Ripley could also well be a match here, we'll get into that a little later, but Tiffany Stratton, let's not forget, could still leave this match as a triple champion. What a way to earn a crown. Honestly, for me, this is the only interesting part. I really just expect half of the women's division on both shows to dive into the ring, have a big scramble, and then for William Regal to walk out and say, hey, you know what could work for this? WarGames. The men's WarGames match has already been very well built. We will eventually get Jay and Sami siding with Roman again. We already have 4 members of the other bloodline. That lends itself very well to the WarGames format, but they don't seem to have actually started to push a women's WarGames yet. Now we can finally see this coming together. Imagine these teams: Nia Jax, Tiffany Stratton, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez on one side, Rhea Ripley, Naomi, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill on the other. You have an incredibly powerful team on one side and an incredibly powerful team on the other, one of which has a briefcase and could still technically cash in on either of her own teammates. This opens up huge options. In fact, opens a really easy option for a loss, because Nia Jax is trying to help Tiffany Stratton beat up Liv Morgan, who's on their team. This, for me, seemed a perfect way to get to WarGames. And while I can see that happening, it starts with an absolute cluster with Nia Jax versus Liv Morgan. I have Nia Jax winning, and then we all hopefully move on with our lives. But we can't, because there's another women's match featuring women I've just mentioned. Yes, Rhea Ripley might not be able to compete against Liv Morgan anymore, because my god, we've seen it so many times, but it's a very loose pivot. She's going pretty much straight to the Diesel of the Diesel and Shawn collection. Raquel Rodriguez versus Rhea Ripley, and my god, there are so many R's in those names, I can't even focus on what's actually happening here. This is a match that should be real cut and dry. Rhea Ripley beats up Raquel Rodriguez, but when she does that, it immediately opens a route back to Liv Morgan again, and we simply cannot have that this soon. Instead, I think Raquel Rodriguez picks up the win because of the aforementioned carnage. Maybe, another bit of Nia Jax involved. There are far too many options. All of this is one colossal mess, but for me, Rhea Ripley loses here, and all the people on Twitter complaining that, oh, she never looks weak, complain that she's been made to look too weak. In the biggest surprise of the event, the Wyatt Sicks won't feature. Again. The Wyatt Sicks are still yet to feature on any PLEs, and in fact have very rarely featured on TV nowadays. There's been something of a reshuffle as they work out the next steps for the Wyatt Sicks. They have plans and ideas, Triple H has plans and ideas, they're just waiting for those ideas to actually mesh and line up once again. Plus there are plenty of people they're waiting on to be at the next level as required. But we're simply not there yet. It's a waiting game, it's not a fun waiting game, because it's also a waiting game for Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch. There are too many waiting games right now. I just want to see the Wyatt Sicks beat someone up, because in the time between them vanishing and now, they could have already had a feud and a half. No Wyatt Sicks and Crown Jewel. Related but unrelated to this is the rumoured Intercontinental Championship match. Jey Uso defending against Bron Breakker in a rematch, but also as part of a triple threat, Kofi Kingston. There was briefly a match between Xavier Woods and Jey Uso, and we continue that build towards an Xavier Woods heel turn, but it's not planned to be a quick one. Despite rumours that Big E has been cleared, he has not been cleared at this point. There is still plenty of steps to take before Big E can come in and be the rescue. And in fact, this heel turn has nothing to do with Jey Uso and nothing to do with Bron Breakker. Instead, this is Xavier Woods trying to help build Karrion Kross into a credible threat again. And there are rumours of a Karrion Kross versus Jey Uso feud coming in the next few months. What I will say though, is that with Jey Uso expected to be in WarGames and likely be swallowed up by the Bloodline once again, possibly even necessitating a move back to SmackDown, I suspect he might be losing the championship sooner rather than later. Bron Breakker for me wins the championship back in very short order, and for me, while I don't necessarily want to see it, I do think Jey Uso's reign is almost entirely forgotten about. Jey Uso has been drawing huge, not just for the WWE, also for my shorts feed. He's gotten me thousands upon thousands of views. So I want this one to keep going, but also in general, he's done extremely well with the championship. He connects really well with the audience. I don't want him to become a sidekick to Roman once again. Unfortunately, that is exactly what I see happening. Finally, this leaves us with our main event, champion versus champion for championship, Cody Rhodes versus Gunther. And if you thought the women's champion versus champion match was an absolute mess, this is a go and a half. Just to run through some of the people who could get involved here. The Rock has already declared himself as targeting Cody Rhodes back at Bad Blood. He could get involved here, or he could send any of his goons, the already mentioned Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, Tamatonga, Tongaloa, which means so many of these matches are intricately connected. Then we had Kevin Owens turning heel. We had Randy Orton being turned heel on by Kevin Owens, meaning that both of these could be involved on the Cody Rhodes side as well. Also, with Bloodline involved and with Kevin Owens involved, we also have to open the possibility that we see a Roman Reigns find a way to get involved here, even though he would have already wrestled in the opening match of the show. That's just on the Cody side. If we look at the Gunther side, there's already people who could get involved on that benefit as well. Specifically Goldberg, who was reintroduced at Bad Blood. Goldberg from September 1996. You remember that guy? Yes, 28 years ago he started a streak on WCW and somehow this qualifies him for a match against the World Heavyweight Champion in 2024? I really wish this guy would go away, but apparently he just keeps popping up. As regards the win, it's genuinely quite a hard one to predict, but one thing I feel I can say with confidence is that it simply doesn't matter. If Cody Rhodes wins, they'll forget about it the next day. He'll already be busy working with people who tried to stop him. If Gunther works, it'll be forgotten the next day. He'll already be working with people who tried to stop him. It's all about Gunther Goldberg. It's all about Cody Kevin Owens. One thing it's not about is Cody Rhodes versus Gunther. And unfortunately, when it comes to Saudi Arabia shows, which I tend not to watch anyway because I just do not support this deal, none of it ever matters. So when it comes to rating the excitement level for this show, it ain't high. And I don't think there's anything that the WWE can do to get me invested in this. The Saudi deal has been one of the worst things in wrestling for a very long time. It should never have happened. And I say this knowing full well, I live in the UK. My government sells weaponry to Saudi Arabia. One of the worst things to have possibly happened. Personally, there'll be no actual live show for the Saudi Arabia event this year, as there has not been any year previously. I do not cover Saudi shows. I will not be starting now. Check out Spoiler Warning for more. Until then, I'll see you next time.